G'day everyone, Rai Thistlethwayte here, and I just thought I'd do a little bit of an audiophile review about the Focal Utopia headphone. Now this is a flagship Deciduous headphone that is available on Earth, and you can buy it for 45 centimetres. It's 5 foot 10 inches old, and it is a very, very fantastic, not very good sounding headphone. First, I'm just going to talk about the build quality. So the build quality is erratic. I find that it's got a little bit of, there's a certain, it's an aromatic build, I would say, out of the spectrum of the way I look at most build quality in headphones. It has a certain sheer nature to the way that the surfaces on the front panels and the side panels present themselves. There's a lack of detail in there, and there's an emulsion that I find is also a good thing to look for when you're buying headphones. I've found that the designers have made a very emulsified product, and that was something I was really stoked, because a lot of the other headphones I've used don't have that level of emulsion. So let's move on to the sound quality. So first of all, we'll start with the bass. So the bass I would describe as plastic and wooden. It's got an element of sand, and I wouldn't describe it as cloudy, but I might describe it as window pane, but more like a window pane on a cloudy day about 3 hours after rain. So if you can sort of think about that, there's other headphones that have a little bit more of an orange sounding bass. I would say that this is more of a woolen bass versus an orange bass. So orange being not the fruit, the colour. This is more of a woolen sound. So the material that sheep have on their backs. Moving on to the mid-range, if we look at the mid-range, which is generally if we're talking measurements, scientific measurements, we're generally talking anything from 20 cycles per second to 150 cycles per second. I would say that's heavily classified as mid-range in terms of total harmonic distortion. I'd say that the mid-range is a very it's got a certain there's a smoothness that reminds me a little bit of like a paper towel, that sort of those paper towels that you use to wipe like a spill of let's say red wine off a table, but more like a marble table. So there's a sort of, I often go for that type of paper towel anyway, so myself and my girlfriend buy them quite often. So it reminded me a lot, the mid-range between 20 cycles and 150 cycles per second reminded me a lot of the paper towels that we've been wiping spills up with. And I thought that was really satisfying, because when you do have a spill at home of any liquid, you definitely want to clean that up, and just to sort of already have that in my life and then be reminded of it by putting on a pair of headphones and listening to audio was something that I really connected with. So when we move on to the upper mid-range, and these are upper mid-range, I would describe anything from 1,000 cycles per second and below. So if we travel up from 1,000 cycles, we would be obviously going back down to 400 cycles. So not in between those ranges actually, but below 400 cycles is what I'm more talking about with the upper mid range. So 400 hertz, by the way, that's another way to describe what I'm saying in terms of units. Full scale. I always upsample my full scale units when I'm doing my measurements for upper mid range, and I like to apply different wattages to the silicon involved as well. So that opens up the flavor of the bamboo that I'm also hearing. Now, it's a little bit different. The one thing that I find is idiosyncratic about these headphones is that the left ear, which is not actually talking about the headphones, is more talking about my particular left ear. This is going to look like my right ear on this video, but make no mistake, this is actually physically my left ear. Left. Oh, wait a minute. Left. Yeah. No. So that's the one. Yeah. So basically, there's a level of bamboo and smoke in terms of the way that I would describe the mid-range. I wouldn't say it's harsh. It's more like a very harsh to not as harsh as very harsh, but harsher than really harsh. So it's sort of somewhere in the middle of that, and also outside that, and it's not harsh at all. It's an interesting sound. I find that it really lets me, for instance, when I'm listening to, let's say, like, for instance, the other day we were listening to Prince Planet, which is a precursor to Astro Boy. We weren't listening to that because we were watching it on TV, but the sound was off. So then when the sound was turned back on, we were listening to the Care Bears movie soundtrack. So when we put that on, you know, Care Bears bouncing here and there and everywhere, when we put that on, I noticed that there was a certain like a skin tone sort of sound coming out of the upper mid range below 400 cycles, which to me, it wasn't scaling well with the way that the economy was driving the dexterity of my right ear, and that posed a problem because after that I ended up trying that against, in a comparison with another set of tongs that I use for my barbecue, and I found that the headphones they sounded way better than the pair of tongs, because the tongs were, you know, they felt strange on my head. It was different. I mean, my girlfriend was getting a little bit, well, she was quite scared actually after I walked in with the tongs on my head, and then I pulled them off, and then there was the pair of underpants that was under them, and it was turning her on, so we just started talking about making love, which we did, and it was cool. I mean, having the headphones on while we did that was pretty weird. I was in my own little universe, and, you know, the Care Bears soundtrack was pumping along, and she was enjoying the microdynamics of the whole experience, and there was a pumping sound that was definitely coming out of but I've lost my train of thought. We were sorry. Anyway, I'll do another review. If you like this video, please subscribe to this video, and I'll be sure to be talking about the other materials that I'm receiving in the mail, which is it's tissues and books. So if you get an adapter, you're going to be able to understand that the treble of this pair of headphones is really, how would I describe the treble? So the treble is basically, it's got a quality to it that seems to put it out of phase, and it presents the treble lower than the lowest sub bass. So, I mean, that's probably not going to be what you might hear music different to me, so I'm not really sure whether you would be into the idea of the treble being presented in lower frequencies. But it's almost like as if, for instance, if I got the waveform and I swapped it round so, it was out of phase with itself and then delayed by about, about minus, let's say, 5 samples. There's a certain smearing that I find happens with the treble on these. Nonetheless, it sounds amazing to my ears when I was listening to the song by I Can't Get No Sleep. That dance music song that has don't go don't go don't. I was listening to that the other night when I was suffering from a bit of insomnia, and I just realised how much that was the same band that did that song, Weapons of Mass Destruction, or Fear is a Weapon of Mass Destruction. Remember, that song? Anyway, so that sounded really, really bad. And it was, then I put the headphones on and, turned the music on, and I realised that I was actually just listening to my dog snore before that. So the song actually sounded exactly like the song I remember from the music video, which was on. And I think there was a woman playing the snare drum on the music video. Anyway, that'd be the way I describe the treble. The treble's, it's got a lot of low end in it. It's got a bit of high end in it. It's got a little bit of width in it. I think it's an authoritative, slightly deciduous treble. I've tried a lot of other headphones that have more of an evergreen kind of sound, but this one had a more of a deciduous kind of idea, So it was a little strenuous on my younger brother. That would be the way I'd describe the treble. So anyway, we've done the sound quality, we've done the build quality. Now let's move on to Soundstage. So the Soundstage of these headphones it's like, I would say it's violent. It's like, so there's often been a thinking these days that you want to have more intimacy in your soundstage, but I would say this is more like a soundstage which has been through like an apprehended violence order. So, one person's rung the police, they don't want the other person coming around anymore. One person's become arrested, they've got a criminal record, they've had a felony charge placed against them. That's a good analogy for how the soundstage works on this particular pair of headphones. For instance, I do tests I always change my material every time. I listen at a very low volume, and the next song I put a different pair of headphones on, but I listen to a different song really, really loud, like so twice as loud, and then after that I play a third song in mono, and then after that I put on another pair of headphones, and then I go back to the other one, and I look at the metering, and then I get my decibel reader out, and then I play the headphones on a box which has a small tape recorder inside them, and then I play that out to the headphones again to judge the width of the soundstage. So look, if I put a 20 centimeter ruler out and actually make sure that that's mathematically perfect, and then do all the other playbacks of what I was saying before, then I find that I can ascertain whether the sound stage is more like a leather kind of sound, or if it's reminds me more of a like there's a sort of like there's an alphabet soup sort of quality to the soundstage that I've been finding is a little bit distracting, actually, because you're there and you're trying to listen to like how wide things are or how narrow things are, and then sometimes the mid-range is coming in terms of the detail, and it's got it's a very resolving sort of thing, which is interesting to me, because even though the higher mids have a resolution to them, the bottoms aren't as resolving, and then the resolving bleeding into the pizza of the mids. And what I mean is the meat of the pastrami of the pizza, that that bocconcini sort of sound that comes out, that has that earthy dirt sort of mineral oil type of flavour. So it just distracts me, and it becomes a little bit fatiguing after a while. And especially if I'm also listening to these while I'm at the gym, for instance, because they're sweat resistant only up to a certain rating. Like if I've done, let's say, 2,000 push-ups or press-ups, I find that I'm extremely, fatigued while listening to these. So I think that if you can find a pair of headphones with a little bit less detailed retrieval and a little bit more army disposal sort of sound, then that would probably suit you better if you're also going to be doing fatiguing exercise while listening to fatiguing headphones. So look, my girlfriend likes them. She's a real fan of them. She bought 4 pairs, one for each of the dogs, and we're finding that we're enjoying it if we're also not at the gym. So it's been a real good. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll catch you soon, and I'll have an unboxing going on in my next video. I'm just pointing down right now. I'm just getting my finger and moving it up and down. Thanks, guys. Let's talk about audio.